Hi, I'm John Jessup with Chief Political Correspondent David Brody here in our CBN News Washington, D.C. Bureau. Hey, David.
Yeah.
Today, Donald Trump visits not New Mexico.
New Mexico.
He visits the country of Mexico
Right.
for a face-to-face meeting with the Mexican president. This comes literally hours before he's supposed to give an address on the topic of immigration. A lot of people are going to be watching to hear if he, to use his own phrase, softens or potentially walks back on this issue that's propelled him to the top of the GOP field, which is deporting all of America's illegal immigrants. What do you anticipate, and why do you think he wants to address the topic now?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, he's on a good stretch run here. I mean, he's been on a good run. Hillary Clinton's numbers have gone down a little bit. And then, look, Kellyanne Conway, the campaign manager, is at the helm here. And that means that she's doing smart stuff and he's listening. And I think one of the things that she's doing that's in a very smart way is to capitalize on showing Donald Trump as presidential, if you will. And when you meet with a foreign head of state, you do that. Now, Mexico, of all places, maybe Israel, maybe some other folks. But look, Donald Trump is the unconventional candidate. And it's so interesting. This whole thing reminds me, let me dial it back for a moment. No one knew about this trip until about 36 to 48 hours ago.
Right.
And that's because no one in Donald Trump's campaign knew about this until about 36 to 48 hours ago, because that is Donald Trump being Donald Trump, which is looking around the room and going, you know what, let's go to Mexico.
Right.
And just getting up and going on a plane. The press corps is not with him on this trip. It is a closed-door meeting. It's very unusual the press corps is not with him. The point simply is that Donald Trump has definitely got some work to do, but he wants to do it on his terms. Now, I can tell you this. You can be sure, John, there was a phone call or two made down to the Mexican president's headquarters, if you will, to make sure and see exactly how this is going to go down. There is some risk here for sure for Donald Trump. What is the Mexican president going to say afterwards? Having said that, you do get the sense that they didn't go down there and they're not stupid about it.
Right.
They would go down there and
they've got their ducks in a row.
There's something that they're going to get out of it, they being the Trump campaign. We'll find out what that is a little later.
Speaking of an unconventional candidate, this Saturday, Trump travels to Detroit to court African-American voters. Exactly who is he going to be speaking to in Motor City? And does this believe that the campaign has a real shot of turning out minority voters this November?
Well, Donald Trump has always said right from the get-go that he believes that he'll be a great president for African Americans. And people go, well, why? You're at about 5% in the polls. And he says jobs. He believes that he'll bring back jobs and that eventually people will see him as a jobs president within the African American community. The problem is he's got to get elected first. And he's at 5% in the polls, and that's a problem. Having said that, he'll meet with excuse me, I'm all choked up. It's a very emotional issue for me. Bishop Wayne T. Jackson, who is with Great Faith Ministries in Detroit. He's been there for a while. He is CEO of the Impact Network, where they bill themselves as the largest and only owned and operated African-American Christian network, television network in the entire country. So he'll speak to it. It's funny because Bishop Jackson has a show called Miracles Do Happen. And Donald Trump will appear on this show this Saturday.
Fitting.
Yeah, very fitting, because miracles do happen because Donald Trump's the nominee.
Right, right. So I want to take this back to a recent interview. You were just in Minnesota, I believe, with Mark Bautista.
Yes.
Interviewing former Congressman Michelle Bachmann. You were at her home for a very interesting interview. She told you something about Donald Trump being raised by God to be the GOP nominee. What did she say? What did she mean by that?
Well, she went to the book of Daniel, and she talked about how Donald Trump has been raised up. Those were her words. God raised up. Those were her three words. God raised up Donald Trump to be the GOP presidential nominee. And she went to the book of Daniel talking about God does this. He obviously raises people up for such a time as this, if you will. And she is convinced of it. And of course, it's made a lot around CNN, Politico, Huffington Post, all around the country because, look, Michelle Bachmann, a lot of people say, oh, she's just the former congresswoman. Well, actually, hold on for a moment. She's actually an evangelical advisor to Donald Trump. She has met with him quite a bit recently and was one of those 20 or 25 people that was around him in June. Remember when he had that big evangelical meeting with about 1,000 in New York with 1,000 evangelical leaders? Before that meeting, he met privately with about 20, 25 folks, Michelle Bachmann, one of the folks in that room. So we went out and talked to her about that along with a whole lot of other stuff.
Speaking of other stuff, a new ABC News Washington Post poll shows that Hillary Clinton is at her highest unfavorability rating yet, so to speak, 56%. And the first time in a year where more women view her negatively than positively. Now, Donald Trump not doing so much better, 63% overall unfavorability rating. These two candidates are the most unpopular presidential candidates in the last 30 years. How do you think that's going to translate this November with voter turnout?
Well, this is very interesting. And let me just go back to those numbers for a moment. You mentioned the numbers, which are accurate. I will say this. I'll drill down a little further.
Please do.
If you look at registered voters, 59% see Hillary Clinton unfavorable, 60% see Donald Trump unfavorable with registered voters. That's a tie.
Right.
So even though Donald Trump upticks with overall voters, registered voters, the ones that are actually going to show up,
They're even.
totally even. This has been a problem for Donald Trump and both Hillary Clinton all along. But here's the good news for Donald Trump. Really, the only candidate he could probably beat would be Hillary Clinton, and she's running. And a lot of folks on the Bernie Sanders side believe that the only candidate that can defeat Hillary Clinton is Donald Trump. They're very concerned that Hillary Clinton could be in big trouble to Donald Trump. And these are Bernie Sanders folks talking. So we'll see about that. But look, one thing we know about elections is that typically the change candidate wins. George W. Bush was the change candidate in 2000 after Bill Clinton. Right. In 2008, of course, Barack Obama, hope and change. And here we are. Donald Trump is the change candidate, but will he be that change candidate when you stick your foot in your mouth so much? Then you might not be the change candidate. It might be another candidate, which has another word that I can't say on here on CBNnews.com.
You can try.
No. I don't want to do that. Human resources will call.
What, 2 more months to go before the election?
2 more months.
We're going to keep you pretty busy on the campaign trail.
You will. I'll be here. I'll be standing at my desk just like this the next time you call.
Well, until next time, remember you can follow David, you can follow me and CBN News on Facebook, Twitter, and of course CBNnews.com.